The string data type is one of the most commonly used in your programming code. When you declare a variable and set the data type as a string, it can only contain a string. I'm working in the project strings, and within the run code subroutine, I'll declare a new variable named hello and set its data type as string. And I'll assign a value of hello from Visual Basic. Then I'll output that value using the hello function. I'll run the application and test, and there's the result. When you declare a variable as a string and you assign a literal string, as I'm doing here, what you're really doing is creating an instance of the string class. And you can use alternative notation that makes that a little bit more clear. I'll go into full screen mode since I'll be adding some more code, and I'll add a new variable called howdy. Once again, I'll set its data type as string, and this time I'll use the keyword new and the constructor method of the string class. The nature of a constructor method in object-oriented programming is that it has the same name as the class it belongs to, and it returns an instance of that class. This notation in Visual Studio tells me that there are 3 different versions of the constructor method for this class. One that receives an array of characters, one that receives a single character and then a numeric value, and it pads the value with multiple instances of the character, and one that takes an array of characters and then parses it using a starting index and a length. I'm going to use the first constructor method, but instead of passing in an explicit array of characters, I'll simply pass in another string, howdy, and then I'll output the value. And I'll see that that outputs exactly the same. When you use this syntax, you're taking a literal string, converting it to an array of characters, and then back to a string again. So essentially, a string is just an array of characters. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves right now, talking about arrays, but it's important to understand the basic nature of an array. An array is an ordered set of data. Whatever order it's put in, it stays in that order until you, the programmer, change it. And I'm going to break up these strings into arrays in a couple of different ways. First, I'll describe how to take a string, hello from Visual Basic, and break it up into an array of words. You do this using a method of the string class called split. I'll declare a new variable named words, and I'll set its data type as array. And I'll get its value from calling the hello variable's split method. The split method, by default, looks for spaces, and wherever it finds a space character, it breaks up the strings. So I should get back an array of 4 words. To test this, I'm going to loop through the array. And once again, this will be new syntax that I haven't shown previously. I'm going to use a statement called for each. I'll type in for each, and then I'll create a new variable called word, and I'll set an explicit data type as string. And I'll get the value by using a keyword called in, and then I'll pass in the array words. When I press enter, the keyword next is added. This is a looping construct. It'll loop through the array, and for each word it finds, that is, for each string it finds after parsing, it'll execute the code between the for and the next. So I'll use the output method and pass in the word variable. Now when I run the code, I'm breaking up that original string into 4 separate values. You can also break up a string into individual characters. You do this by calling a method of the string class called toCharArray, and it looks like this. I'll create a new variable that I'll call letters, and once again I'll set its data type as an array, but this time I'll be specific. It's an array of characters. The notation for this is the data type followed by a beginning and ending parenthesis. And I'll get its value using the howdy variable, and I'll call its method toCharArray. Just as I did with the words array, I'll loop through the result and output each element on a single line. This time the code will be for each letter as char in letters, and I'll output the letter. And here's the result. The letters output 1 line at a time. Finally, I'll show you a little bit about how to format numeric values. Visual Basic has a couple of built-in functions called format and format currency that you can use to take strings or numbers and apply specific formatting. I'll create a variable called numeric, and I'll set its data type as decimal, and I'll give it a value of 45,000. Notice when I type in the numeric literal, I'm not using a comma. If I tried to add a comma, it would cause an exception. A numeric literal can't have any commas or spaces. Next, I'll declare a string that I'll call strNumeric. And I'll set its value using the format function. The format function takes two arguments: the value you want to format and a style, also sometimes known as a mask. I'll type in a value as a string of 0,000. I'll close the string and close the format function. And then I'll output the result using output strNumeric. There's the code, and here's the output. $45,000 with a comma. Now, you can learn all about the different styles or masks that you can use in the format function, but frequently you need to output currency values, and there's actually a special function for that called format currency. I'll move the cursor down below this code, and I'll add a new variable called strCurrency. Once again, it's a string, and I'll get its value by calling format currency, and I'll pass in the numeric value. I'll output it. I'll run the application, and here's the result, a formatted currency value. The strCurrency function can be used for dollar values, such as I'm doing here, or for other international currency formats. So that's a brief look at the string class. To learn more about what you can do with the string class, look at the documentation. I'll click into the word string and press F1. That takes me into my browser to the string data type. And here you can learn all about the different things that you can do with strings, including manipulating, concatenating, parsing, and otherwise working with them as you need to in your application.